Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of people watch these videos but don't subscribe? If you enjoy stories of justice and payback, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like the video if you're ready for today's story. Let's get to the story. My name is Daniel Carter, and for 10 years I lived under the illusion that I had a perfect marriage. I married my college sweetheart, Emily. We were young, idealistic, and convinced that love could weather anything. We moved to a modest home in the suburbs of Indianapolis, where I worked as a mechanical engineer for a mid-sized firm, and Emily pursued a career in teaching. On the outside, we looked like your average couple. Two people building a life together, laughing at dinner tables, attending barbecues, and going on road trips. But under that surface, cracks were slowly forming, and I didn't see them until it was far too late. The thing about betrayal is that it never comes from enemies. I've thought about that quote often since everything happened. It doesn't hit you like a truck all at once. It's more like drowning. You don't notice how deep you're sinking until you realize you can't breathe anymore. I first noticed something odd a little over a year ago. Emily had started acting distant, but not in a way that was obvious. It was subtle. A glance at her phone she thought I didn't catch. The way her voice changed slightly when she said, "Just a coworker," or how she began to have meetings at strange hours. At first, I blamed myself. I thought maybe I wasn't present enough. Maybe I had let work stress consume me. Maybe I had become boring or predictable. I bent over backwards, trying to fix things I didn't even understand were broken. I started leaving work early to cook dinner. I planned a surprise date nights. I even started going to therapy by myself, just to understand how I could be better for her. And she smiled. She laughed. She even thanked me. But there was always something behind her eyes, something hollow, as if I was looking into the shell of the woman I married. Then came the day that changed everything. I was working from home, finishing up a project with a tight deadline. Emily had said she was going out for a school event, some late-night parent-teacher conference. Something about it didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was just the accumulation of every small suspicion that had been eating away at me. Whatever it was, I opened her laptop while mine was updating, something I hadn't done in months. It wasn't snooping at first, at least that's what I told myself. But when I saw her email tab open and a message preview pop up from someone named Nick, my stomach turned. I clicked. There it was. Message after message, carefully worded but not careful enough. He wasn't just a friend. He wasn't just a colleague. He was a part of her life I knew nothing about. A secret she guarded so closely, she had crafted an entire narrative around it. They talked about how he made her feel seen, how different things were when she was with him. They talked about weekends at conferences and school trips that were nothing more than hotel escapades. And the worst part? There was no guilt. She never said she felt bad about lying to me. In fact, she talked about me like I was just some background character in her story. A mild inconvenience. I didn't confront her that night. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, replaying every moment of our marriage in my head. The late nights, the whispered calls, the sudden interest in fitness, the new wardrobe. All of it made sense now. It was like assembling a puzzle and finally seeing the picture. And the picture made me sick. But I didn't lose my temper. I didn't break anything. I didn't scream. That's not who I am. I believe revenge is best served not in rage, but in silence, in calculation. So I made a plan. Over the next few weeks, I played the role of the loving husband. I smiled. I cooked. I massaged her shoulders when she was stressed. She had no idea I knew, and that's exactly how I wanted it. I began collecting everything: emails, photos, hotel bookings. I even bought a burner phone and followed her one night when she said she had a weekend seminar out of town. She wasn't even being careful anymore. She met him at a hotel just off the interstate, like it was just another Saturday. I took photos. I recorded video, not to post online or confront her in a scene, but because I knew I would need proof, not just for myself, but for what I had planned. Emily and I didn't have kids, which made things simpler in some ways. But we did have a house, joint savings, and a shared social circle. I started moving money out of our joint accounts into a separate one under my name, slowly enough that she wouldn't notice. I talked to a lawyer, quietly, discreetly, and laid the groundwork for a divorce. But not yet. Not until I made her feel what I felt. Not until I pulled the rug from under her in the same way she had done to me. Nick, the man she was seeing, was a high school gym teacher. I did some digging. Turns out he was married too. His wife Rachel was a dental hygienist. I found her on Facebook, then Instagram. She seemed sweet. Too sweet to deserve what was happening behind her back. I considered messaging her, but that would have blown everything up too early. I needed time, patience. Then came our anniversary. 10 years. I took Emily to the same restaurant where I had proposed to her, pretending everything was perfect. I bought her flowers, a necklace. She cried at the table, telling me she was lucky to have a man like me. I looked her in the eye and smiled. That moment nearly broke me, but I held it together. Because I knew that very soon, her whole world would fall apart. A week later, I finally met Rachel. I found out where she worked and made an appointment for a cleaning. She didn't recognize me, of course. I used a fake last name. During our brief chat, I learned she had 2 kids, ages 6 and 4. Her face lit up when she talked about them. I nearly canceled everything right then. She didn't deserve the pain I was about to unleash. But then I thought about the dozens of lies Emily had told, about the man she was pretending I still was, about how easily she had tossed our vows aside. And I reminded myself, this wasn't about revenge for the sake of it. This was about showing them both that actions have consequences. I sent Rachel an anonymous message the next day with proof. Photos, screenshots, locations, timestamps, everything. I didn't include any threats, just the truth. A truth that had nearly destroyed me. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Emily came home 2 days later in a panic. She had barely shut the front door before she started crying. Nick's wife found out, she said, like the words were knives in her throat. She left him, took the kids, everything's a mess. I acted surprised, concerned, supportive even. She leaned into me, seeking comfort from the man she had betrayed. And I gave it to her. For one last time. Because what she didn't know was that her turn was next. By the time she woke up the next morning, I was gone. My side of the closet empty. My name removed from the bank accounts. A note on the kitchen table with a single sentence. I know everything. I didn't pick up her calls. I didn't respond to her texts. I let her sit in silence in the mess she had made. And that was only the beginning. The morning I left felt like breathing again after being underwater for too long. I drove for hours with no clear destination, just the open road and a playlist of songs I hadn't heard in years. Songs I used to love before, they reminded me of her. Every mile I put between me and that house felt like peeling off a layer of pain. But I wasn't running. I was resetting, starting the second phase of what I had planned. The part where I didn't just walk away, but made sure she would never forget why I did. I had been staying in a small Airbnb 2 towns over. It was nothing fancy. A quiet place above a bakery owned by an old couple who barely spoke English. I paid in cash, kept a low profile, and stayed off social media. I knew Emily would try to reach me, but I also knew she wouldn't know where to begin. For the first time in our relationship, I had become the mystery. 3 days after I left, I finally called her. She answered on the first ring. "Daniel," she said, her voice breathless. "Where are you? Please, just talk to me." I didn't yell. I didn't even sound angry. That's what caught her off guard the most. "I just wanted you to hear it from me," I said calmly. "I've filed for divorce. You'll be served soon." There was a long pause, and then a sob. She tried to speak, but I hung up before she could finish. I wasn't interested in her apologies. I wasn't interested in excuses, tears, or explanations. I had given her a decade. She had taken my loyalty and twisted it. Now it was my turn to take something from her. In Indiana, adultery isn't grounds for spousal punishment in divorce court the way it might be elsewhere, but that didn't mean I was helpless. I had leverage, photos, messages, even statements from a private investigator I'd hired during those last few weeks. I knew the court might not care about the emotional betrayal, but employers and colleagues did. Her reputation was about to crumble, not because I would smear her name, but because the truth, spoken in the right place at the right time, was often more powerful than lies. I met with her school board anonymously. I sent a package with just enough evidence to make them take a second look at her frequent professional development weekends. I didn't say a word, just sent the truth. That was enough. A month later, she was placed on administrative leave pending an ethics review. Meanwhile, Nick, the man she'd risked it all for, was drowning in his own mess. After Rachel left him and took the kids, he tried calling Emily. She didn't tell me this, of course, but I still had access to our shared phone account. I could see all the numbers she called and texted. Nick's number showed up a lot, until one day it stopped. I later found out Rachel had filed for full custody, citing infidelity, and Nick was now couch surfing with one of his brothers. It was ironic. They had blown up two families chasing a fantasy, and now, with the smoke clearing, all they had left was the wreckage. I didn't need to lift a finger. They were burning themselves down, but I wasn't done. You see, Emily's greatest asset wasn't her job or her social life. It was her image. She had spent years curating the persona of a warm, loyal, loving wife. Her social media was filled with filtered selfies, inspirational quotes, anniversary posts that aged like milk, and stories about the man who made her whole. People admired her. Friends looked up to our marriage. She was the one others called for advice about relationships. So I gave the truth a little push. I made a simple blog, anonymous, factual, time-stamped. I uploaded the screenshots, photos, and dates. No commentary, just evidence. I titled it The Other Side of the Story. I posted the link once in a comment on her anniversary post from a year ago, using a fake account. Then I waited. The dominoes fell quickly. Mutual friends stopped responding to her. Her group chats went quiet. She deleted her Instagram for a while, then reactivated it with comments turned off. Her carefully constructed world, the image she clung to, was slipping through her fingers. She tried to call me again. I didn't answer. She sent long texts, some angry, some pathetic, some begging me to talk to her like adults. I blocked her number. My lawyer handled the rest. We settled for minimal spousal support, and I kept the house. She didn't fight much. She couldn't afford to. Her legal fees were climbing, and her savings had started to dwindle now that I had removed access to our joint accounts. Her career was in limbo. Her lover was gone. Her friends disappeared, and I, her once spineless, predictable husband, was suddenly the only person who hadn't lost everything. But here's the thing. Revenge wasn't about making her suffer. That's not what drove me. What drove me was the understanding that healing would never come from pretending it didn't happen. I had to expose the truth, not just to her or her lover or the people around us, but to myself. I had spent years believing in a lie because I wanted to, because it was easier. I had let comfort become blindness, and it nearly destroyed me. After everything settled, I took time off work. I traveled, alone, then with old friends I'd neglected. I went fishing in Montana, learned to cook something other than pasta and chicken. I started running every morning, not to chase anything, but to leave something behind. Months passed. I stopped checking her socials. I didn't care anymore. The anger faded, replaced by something heavier but calmer. Peace. I didn't forgive her. I didn't need to. Some things don't need closure. They just need distance. Then one day, nearly a year after I'd left, I got a letter. Not a text, not an email. A handwritten letter. It was from Emily. She wrote that she had lost her job, that she had moved in with her sister, that she hadn't spoken to Nick in over 6 months and had started therapy. She said she finally understood what she had done. Not just the betrayal, but the layers of lies and manipulation. She said she didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know she was sorry. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Not because I was thinking of forgiving her, but because sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't destruction. It's survival. It's walking away with your dignity, your strength, your soul still intact, while they sit in the ruins of what they destroyed with their own hands. and I had survived. A full year had passed since the divorce was finalized. I remembered the exact date, not because I kept track out of pain, but because it marked the moment I finally exhaled. The official end of a decade-long chapter that had started in love and ended in a storm of betrayal. I wasn't angry anymore. That part had faded. What remained was something harder to describe. A stillness, maybe, or clarity. I didn't open the letter again. I never wrote her back. I figured she had said what she needed to say, and I had already made peace with the silence. I had rebuilt most of what she tore down, not just my life, but my sense of self. I had a new apartment overlooking the city, a better job with a promotion I hadn't dared go for before, and a circle of people who actually showed up, not just when it was convenient, but when it mattered. The kind who didn't need to ask which side of the story to believe because they already knew the kind of man I was. Emily, on the other hand, had mostly disappeared from the radar. Word spread that she had moved back to her hometown. She wasn't teaching anymore. Someone said she was working at a retail job and living with her younger sister while trying to get back on her feet. People felt sorry for her. I didn't. It's not that I wanted her life to be miserable. I just didn't want her to pretend like what she did didn't matter. Actions have consequences. Truth always finds a way to speak, even when the world tries to bury it under excuses and lies. One afternoon, I bumped into Rachel, Nick's ex-wife, at a coffee shop. She recognized me instantly and walked over. I hadn't seen her since the fallout. "Daniel," she said. "Wow, you look good, healthier." I smiled, surprised she even wanted to talk. "You look like you're doing well too. How are the kids?" "They're great," she said, her tone a little lighter. "We're all better off now." There was a pause, like we were both measuring how far we'd come since the wreckage. "I heard Nick's back with his parents," she added. "Haven't seen him in months." "I figured," I said. "Some fires burn out fast when there's no one left feeding them." Rachel nodded. She didn't ask about Emily, and I didn't bring her up. We both knew there wasn't much else to say. Before she left, she looked at me and said, "You did the right thing. I just wanted you to know that." Walking away, exposing the truth, all of it. That stuck with me. Sometimes when you're in the middle of pain, you wonder if doing the right thing even matters. But hearing it from someone who'd been burned by the same fire reminded me that it does. It always does. Weeks later, I got an invitation to a friend's wedding, someone from the old friend circle Emily and I used to be part of. At first I hesitated. I didn't know who might show up or what kind of whispers would follow me through the crowd, but I decided to go anyway. The wedding was beautiful. Simple, outdoors, lots of music and laughter. For the first time in a long time, I felt comfortable being part of a crowd again. I wasn't the husband who got cheated on. I was just Daniel. I was someone people respected again. While I was getting a drink at the bar, someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned, and there she was. Emily. She looked different. Thinner. Less put together. Not in a cruel way, just like someone trying to hold herself together. Her makeup was minimal, her dress plain, her eyes tired. "Hi," she said, soft. "Emily," I nodded. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Likewise." We stood in silence for a beat. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything, really. It was like meeting someone from a life I no longer lived. "I heard about the blog," she finally said. "It hurt. But I deserved it." I nodded again. I wasn't going to argue. "It wasn't about revenge," I said. "It was about truth." She looked down, fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "I read it a lot. Over and over. I hated you for it at first. Then I realized it was the only honest thing left between us." There was that word again. Honest. Something she had taken from me for so long. "I lost everything," she said quietly. "My job, friends. Even my parents were disappointed in me. But the worst part wasn't what I lost. It was realizing I had become someone I never wanted to be." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Her own words were enough. "I'm trying to fix things," she added. "Trying to be better." I just wanted to say that, face to face. I looked at her then, not with hatred, not with pity, but with the full weight of everything we'd both become. Good, I said. I hope you do. Then I turned and walked away. Not because I was trying to make a statement, but because there was nothing left to say. That night, on the drive home, I realized something important. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes, it's a quiet ending, a clean break, a moment where you face the person who broke you and you don't flinch. I had already won, not because she suffered, not because people finally saw the truth, but because I survived it. I became stronger, sharper, calmer. I rebuilt everything she tore down with something better, peace. And that's the kind of ending that doesn't need applause. It just needs silence. And I was finally okay with that.